What is up, everybody? Welcome to a Saturday evening edition of Crunch Time here on RotoGrinders. It's been a long Saturday of baseball, an early start today, just the schedule thrown off with some doubleheaders, but we've navigated our way through it. We've gotten through the early slate. Some of the games are still wrapping up, but we're back for round two. Both Tim and I were on this morning, and we're on again tonight, so we'll see if we can make the double duty pay off on this Saturday. Hit some pretty good calls with the early slate. Obviously, Spencer Strider ended up getting postponed, but the other kind of 1B pitchers, Hunter Green had 10 Ks in 5 innings with no earned runs allowed. Kevin Gausman was really good. But that Toronto offense did not come through against no-name AAA guy from the Mariners who tossed like 6+ no-hit innings. Did not see that coming against Toronto. So we'll see if we can get back on track with the bats here tonight. But I am Justin Van Zuden, STL Cardinals 84. Got Tim Buell alongside. Tim, how's it going?
Pretty good. Yeah, once Strider's game got PPD'd, you had to swap onto some stuff. And I swapped on to a ton of chalk. I knew Pittsburgh was going to be somewhat popular. I didn't think they were going to be as popular as they were. And then, we flipped over the cards and I was like, oh boy, I just ate a lot more chalk than I thought, but I'm still going to end up winning on the early slate, which is good. But I was surprised that they were as chalky as they were. Apparently, everyone hates Patrick Corbin.
Everybody loves picking on Patrick Corbin. It's everybody's favorite game. No offense to those in Patrick Corbin's family that may or may not be watching, but he just hasn't been getting it done at the major league level the last couple of years. So we'll see if he can eventually turn it around. But the Pirates picked up another win. They keep their early season hot streak going. They've got an early lead in game 2 of their doubleheader as well. So they're going to look to get to like 20-8, I believe, which I think I would argue that 20-8 start from the Pirates is more impressive than whatever the 20-5 that the Rays were. Because at least with the Rays, we've seen them do this before. With this Pirates lineup where they're hitting like Connor Joe cleanup, it just 20-8 for the Pirates, with Vince Velasquez and Rich Hill and all these castaways in their rotation, just shocks me beyond belief. But kudos to them for keeping that rolling, and we'll see if they win game 2 of their doubleheader. But just 5 games tonight. It's not going to take us a lot of time to get through these. We've got a 7:05 lock and then 2 more games that start at 7:10. So pretty much everything's got to be in line before that 7:05 lock time. We've got every game starts before 9:10. There's no 10 o'clock games tonight either. So we aren't waiting on a bunch of late lineups or anything like that. Even the Rockies, who are sometimes trouble, have their lineup in. We've got every one of them. So shouldn't be a whole lot we are waiting on as far as setting lineups. And I guess we can probably get right into pitching. I think this is an interesting pitching slate, Tim. How do you break it down?
It really is an interesting pitching slate. Like, I was going to make this really big case to pitch Corbin Burnes, and then I started looking at ownership early in the day, and I was like, oh, I guess he's going to be the chalkiest pitcher on the slate. And I was expecting kind of an adjustment on that throughout the day. And nope, he is still on both the BAT projections and RG's projection system. He is the highest owned pitcher on the slate. So that kind of changed my tune a little bit on him. I still think he's a good play. I just thought he was going to be a little bit lower owned. But I mean, he's really, really struggled this year, or at least he just hasn't been as elite as he has been in years past. So, it's kind of a tricky situation, but he's going to be facing 8 righties. Like, Ward is down to the 7th spot. Nato is batting leadoff, so it feels like it's like a little bit of a weaker LA lineup. So I'm fine with him in cash games. It's just in tournaments, I'm a little bit hesitant. I prefer Kershaw in larger fields, and then Detmers probably would be my SP2 for tournaments. If Eovaldi's going to be chalky, I don't know. I think he's another guy that I'd be underweight on. I know that he's struggled with BABIP, and he might, get a little bit of positive regression. But I'm not as inclined to play him. I prefer Detmers over Eovaldi.
Yeah, I've kind of flip-flopped on having them both tagged at some point throughout the day. I really don't have a strong take between the two. I do think that Uvalde is probably a little bit safer with no Aaron Judge in that Yankees lineup, so I've kind of tagged him as the core-ish play, but I do like Detmers maybe just slightly better in GPPs at half the ownership. Detmers actually has tied for the highest strikeout prop on the slate, or along with Kershaw, he's at 6.5 with some juice on the over. So I like Detmers and GPPs. Uvalde, I think, is perfectly safe, and I think if you're playing over on DraftKings, you could probably play them both because I don't. We talk about the two studs, so this Kershaw is a really interesting case. He's clearly got the best numbers on this slate, but you look at for all the complaining I do about the Cardinals and everything that's gone wrong with them and how bad they've been, they can't really hit, they can't really pitch, they haven't been playing good defense. The one thing that they still do pretty well is hit left-handed pitching. I mean, they've got a lot of guys. I don't think Edmund should switch hit anymore. I don't think Carlson should switch hit anymore. They both hit lefties real well. They can't hit righties at all. So I'm not sure why they even try to hit left-handed anymore, but the Cardinals hit lefties pretty well. So do you want to pay top dollar for Kershaw? I don't know. I think he's safe, but this is a matchup that could give him a little bit of trouble. Burns, you mentioned, has struggled a bit. His strikeouts are way down. He's already spent, a 10-day stretch on the injured list. It's not like I expect these guys to fail, but, Detmers and Uvalde basically project, and even if you're looking at the bat, Lance Lynn projects, I don't know if I buy into that quite as much, but projects for just as many fantasy points as Kershaw and Burns. So what do you make of just going cheap at pitcher tonight? And, for people that are playing cash games out there, I think it's probably going to be a question on a lot of people's minds. Like, do I need to play Kershaw in cash games? Where do you kind of stand on that?
For cash games, I would like to see people play Burns and Kershaw, to be honest with you. I think the bat disagrees with me. I think they would say the bat would say Burns and Eovaldi. But I think there's enough value between. This is just for cash. I'm not talking about tournaments, but I think there's enough value with the White Sox, and I think there's enough cheap cores exposure that you could get to that I think you could double pay up for Kershaw and Burns pretty easily. The only other pitcher that I would mention for tournaments would be Johnny Brito, just because he allows just for salary relief. Like, yeah, he's gotten beat up a couple times, but he's also flashed a little bit of upside, and he's extremely cheap. Like on Fanduel, I don't think you need to, go that low, but on DK as an SP2, 5,600, and you could pay up for all the premium bats that you want. Like, you can easily get to a full Arizona stack, and really anybody that you want if you play Brito. So I think he's an interesting dart throw in tournaments.
Will be interesting to see where people land if any ownership goes there, because there's just not a whole lot of cheap stuff. I kind of like that Detmers Uvalde pairing in GPPs. It helps you, that'll get you all the high end bats you want. All a matter of, there's bats on either end of the spectrum tonight. There's plenty to spend up on, even though it's only a 5-game slate. There's a reasonable amount of value as well. So, depending on where you land on that pitching tier, will determine what you want to do with bats. I think I'm on the side of go with the cheaper pitchers and then be underweight on the Kershaw and Burns, which will allow me to get more of the high end bats. But it's not like it's a must do this or must do that. There is plenty of flexibility out there tonight. All the other pitchers, pretty much out of play. Like Montgomery is safe, but just unnecessary with Detmers and Uvalde cheaper than him, at least on FanDuel. Lynn, are you any interest in Lance Lynn for you?
Not really. I think that this is a really bad matchup for him. I think I know we'll get to stacks, but I really like the Rays as a contrarian GPP option today. They would probably be my favorite contrarian GPP stack of the day. So I don't like this spot for Lynn. I know that he's maybe technically a little bit too cheap at 7,600, but I think we're kind of getting it to the end of the line for Lynn. And this Rays team just night in and night out just seems to have a big ceiling. So I don't really have a lot of interest in Lynn.
Yeah, I'm really concerned about him. I mean, he's 35. He's been in the league for 13 years. And I remember, the couple years that he was with Texas, and of course he spent several years with the Cardinals. Lance Lynn was a workhorse, and they would just let him throw, 110, 115 pitches. And you just don't see that in Major League Baseball these days. Yeah, maybe you did a little bit more 6 or 7 or 8 years ago. But there's a lot of pitches on that right arm that, and it's not like he was out with a lot of injuries, right? 2012, 176 innings and 201 innings, 203 innings, 175 innings, 186 innings, 208 innings. So he's pitched a lot. And I know he's been a little unlucky too, but against the Rays, he's a pass for me tonight as well. So it's basically Kershaw and Burns at the top, Detmers and Uvalde in the middle. Maybe you take a chance on somebody like Brito. I am not, but if you needed the punt, he would probably be the one guy that is down there. So, all right, we can go ahead and pivot to bats. But before we do that, reminder that Fanduel is a great sponsor of the show, keeping it free for you all year long. So if you like that, make sure you hit the thumbs up button there on the YouTube. We appreciate that very much. And don't forget, if you're in a legal sports betting state, you can also sign up for the FanDuel Sportsbook. Take advantage of their awesome new bonus offer. New customers can get a bonus of bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets. Terms and conditions apply on that. But check that out at the FanDuel Sportsbook. And we'll see what becomes of these MLB games tonight, where Tim mentioned he likes the Rays as a sneaky stack. They're a small road favorite over the White Sox over on the FanDuel Sportsbook tonight. Where are you looking in terms of top stacks and offenses this evening?
Well, we got to start at Coors Field, obviously. I mean, they're just both teams tonight. Like normally I would say, we don't need to, screw around with Colorado tonight, but I think they're actually in a pretty good spot. Arizona is, I think, clearly the top option. That shouldn't be a shocker to anybody. But I think they're in a really, really good spot. We're showing them as the top optimal stack on the day, then Colorado number 2, and then Tampa Bay number 3, and then the Angels number 4. So you're getting a lot of negative leverage actually with Colorado. So they might be somebody that you maybe want to perhaps be underweight in tournaments, but it's still pretty risky because they have a high optimal rate relative to the strength of their offense. So that just shows how good of a spot they're in. I'm looking at playing 5 Diamondbacks in single entry tonight. In cash games, I would say you're definitely playing it, 4 Arizona players and you can do it pretty easily. Whether you go up to Kershaw or whether you just play Eovaldi and Burns, like you can play. You're going to be playing a lot of Arizona tonight. So it kind of depends on the contest that you're playing. So I think the shorter the field, the more likely I'm going to be playing Arizona, and then the bigger the field, I would say get up to stacks like the Rays.
Yeah, there's going to be so much ownership on Coors Field. If I sort, at least, let's see, I have the bat projected ownership up now on FanDuel, and if I sort by projected ownership, the top 6 players, let's see, 10 of the top 11 hitters are all from that game in terms of where the projected ownership falls. So there's going to be a lot of ownership on Coors Field tonight. For what it's worth, on a 5-game slate, anything can happen. If you decide to go underweight on the Coors game and it's 12-10, probably not going to be a winning night for you. But if it's a 5-2 type of game and you pick that right offense that goes off for 8, 9, or 10 runs tonight, you could be way ahead of the field. So Tim mentioned the Rays as his kind of favorite. They're probably going to carry a little bit more ownership than I originally thought, but the White Sox are cheap enough. If you are rolling some, if you're rolling some Kershaw and Burns lineups, or you just need that salary relief, I think you can use them as a cheap stack. They've only failed me about the last 600 times I've tried to stack the White Sox, but maybe the 601st time is the charm. If you just can't get there with the White Sox, Texas I think is fine. The Dodgers are certainly always a team that can go off, though Montgomery doesn't get shelled very often. But these are all teams that are just going to fly under the radar a bit for it being a 5-game slate. So, any other thoughts on the stacks?
I was just going to talk about the White Sox real quick. I think they're going to get a lot of ownership because they're so cheap on both sites, and I'm very concerned about them, like in large fields. Like if you need a punt here and there, like, yeah, go for it. I think Jimenez is 3K on DK. Like, yeah, in a vacuum, that's a really good play. I'm just kind of worried about that they're going to get steamed for ownership because people are going to want to pay up at pitching and play Coors Field, and they're going to see these prices on these White Sox, and it's like, geez, like I don't know, it's tough. Like I just be conscious of that when you're building your teams tonight, because I think that they're going to get steamed pretty hard. And I also really like your call on the Dodgers, because they're going to go, I think, really forgotten about on this slate, because they're going to see Jordan Montgomery, who's he is a good pitcher, but this is a really bad spot for him. So I think the Dodgers are a really good spot to get Contrarian in.
All right, let's go ahead and dig into the positions, and we'll get into your questions shortly. We got about a little less than 20 minutes left until lock. If you're a RotoGrinders premium subscriber, you can drop your questions in the MLB Crunch Time Discord channel. I'll grab them out of there. We'll certainly prioritize your questions. If you're not a premium subscriber, you can throw your questions in the YouTube. If we have time, we'll get to those as well. Let's start at catcher tonight. What are you looking at?
So Elias Diaz would be my favorite catcher on the board. I think that it's either Diaz or William Contreras for cash games. I could think you could also do Jose Herrera, as obviously as part of your Arizona stacks. I think Grandal is interesting, but again, it's like I don't know how many of these White Sox I really want to play. So it's kind of a toss up. Like I'm not sure if I want to go. Like I'm debating right now to go 5 Arizona and 3 White Sox, but then I'm just worried that I'm going to get duped. Because I'm playing the 222 single entry and I'm playing the 254 max, and I'm like, is that just too much chalk? So can I get different going like a one-off of Contreras, or can I get different doing a one-off, I don't know, even like a contrarian one-off of like Will Smith or something like that. I'm not sure. So, but I think cash, it's Diaz or Herrera.
Yeah, and certainly if you're playing on Fanduel, you can probably ignore the catcher position entirely. We've got Diaz at about 9% ownership on Fanduel. William Contreras at 8%. He's only 2,800 on Fanduel, though, but I'm not as high on the Brewers. Tim and I both like Detmers a little bit tonight, so just a little bit of a theme there. We're probably not as high on the Brewers bats as you're going to see with the projections. But if you like them, feel free to use them. But lots of strikeouts in that lineup against lefties. So I am underweight on the Brewers myself tonight. All right, let's move to first base. I mean, you're going to see a theme with the Coors Field bats here. Christian Walker, still pretty affordable everywhere. He's very affordable on DraftKings. CJ Cron against the lefty. We know his power profile. It seems like those guys are going to take most of the ownership tonight. You've got Vaughn and Sheets for the White Sox there on FanDuel that are cheap as the cheap White Sox that we've been talking about. So what do you prioritize at first base? It seems like most people are probably just going to plug and play Walker.
Yeah, he's going to be the most popular guy, but I would say that first base is just super, super loaded today. And it's just, I think it's a really great position to spread out, because I think there's like 4 or 5 realistically decent plays at first base, whether it be Cron, Walker, even Rizzo, Andrew Vaughn, who's super cheap. Pavin Smith, I think, is going to be like the really, really contrarian, like Coors guy on DK, because he's only first base only on DK, where he's first base outfield on FanDuel. So I think Pavin Smith makes for a really strong tournament pivot on DK, but first base is really strong today.
Yeah, good call there on Smith, given that there's so many other options even within that game. He just doesn't have the name brand value, if you want to call it that, of the other guys. But going to get under owned for sure on DraftKings, where you can only play one of those first basemen. FanDuel, he also has the outfield eligibility, and you have a utility spot over there, so gives you a little bit more flexibility to get him in there. All right, we've talked on the early show about how weak second base has been. We at least have some reasonable options here on the night slate. Brandon Lau is one of the guys that's projecting as one of the more popular plays, even one of the most popular non-Coors Field plays. You've got Semien leading off. If you're playing on FanDuel, you can play Mookie Betts at second. Gleyber Torres is hitting third for the Yankees tonight. Miguel Vargas is cheap. Ryan McMahon in the Coors Field game is second, third on FanDuel. So at least a few more options than maybe what we had in the early slate at second. Anybody you're prioritizing here?
Yeah, I'm kind of bummed that Lau is so popular. Like, I thought he was going to be sneaky. I had him as my sneaky home run call today, but I guess he's really not sneaky at all. So Perdomo for Arizona is a great play. Batting second today. Marte is getting, he's not starting today, so Perdomo's taking over that spot, and I think that he makes for a really strong play. But yeah, second base is actually like at least reasonable today. I don't know if you mentioned Max Muncy, but I think again, I don't know. Like if I'm making a bunch of teams tonight, don't forget about the Dodgers. I think that they're a really strong contrarian team.
All right, we'll go ahead and move to third base here. Josh Rojas leading the projected ownership charge, leading off for Arizona, 3,100 on FanDuel. A little bit of a surprise. Longoria is in there tonight against a righty. Emmanuel Rivera as well. So at least on FanDuel, three Arizona guys are third base eligible only. Jake Berger, one of the interesting White Sox guys you can look at tonight. Where are you looking at third base?
Yeah, it's super strange tonight because both sites, there are three third basemen on Arizona. So that's definitely going to be a unique lineup construction spot where you can start to get like a little bit different. Right now I have Longoria, but Josh Rojas could end up being the lowest owned because he is so expensive, right? Like he's 5,700 on DK, and I don't think he's that good of a play at 5,700, but that could be what ends up winning you a tournament is if he hits the ceiling performance. And I think that most people are going to go Longoria or save with Rivera. So I think Rojas might end up being the lowest owned guy. So for larger field tournaments, I think Rojas might be the best play. I do have a little bit of interest in Brian Anderson, but I would prefer that you play him in the outfield. And then I agree with you, like a guy like Jake Berger would be interesting also.
Yeah, I like Berger. He's probably my favorite, at least of the White Sox in terms of ceiling potential. Maybe you can throw some of the outfielders in there as well. But I think at third base, if you're looking for, he's about 10% owned. Our projections have him a little bit higher than the bat does, but he's homered in back-to-back games, so I suppose that's propping him up just a little bit. But 2,900 on DK is really where you can get some salary savings with Berger tonight. We'll get to your questions in just a couple of minutes in the Discord and in the YouTube. I see we've got a Dean 78904 signing in the Discord, so he's
here to mush us. He's gonna mush us.
He's here to troll me, probably.
Yeah. Well, definitely troll somebody. That's for sure.
He's asking about Dylan Carlson or Trace Thompson in the outfield. So I don't know. I can't. Like Carlson's been so awful against righties, and he's been so good against lefties. I don't understand the logic with some of these guys, and I'm sure there's a lot more. Like I see it with the Cardinals, obviously, because I watch almost all of their games. But Dylan Carlson has a 378 WOBA, 141 weighted runs created plus, and a 375 batting average against lefties. He's hitting 194 with 243 WOBA and a 53 weighted runs created plus against righties. Now, before everybody goes and says, hey, it's only 50 at bats or something like that, he hit 305 against lefties with a 368 WOBA last year, and he hit 207 against righties with a 281 WOBA. So again, why do these guys continue to switch hit? Just hit right-handed. Like if you can't hit left-handed, why you keep hitting left-handed? Hit righty against the righties. Like even if you got to work in the cage and, or go down to, he's got options left, go down to the minors for a couple weeks and forget to switch hitting. But anyway, Carlson in play against a lefty, or Trace Thompson also against the lefty. He hits lefties pretty well. So you got to take on that question from Dino.
I guess it would be Thompson, right? That's what
it is for me. Like I don't want to pick on Kershaw. Carlson's good against lefties, but he needs to quit switch hitting. That's my analysis on Carlson. All right, shortstop. So you got.
Yeah, if you're not playing Perdomo at second, then I would play him at short. Then you got the two Rockies kind of punt options that you can play at short. And then Anthony Volpe for the Yankees. I think the Yankees are going to be kind of an interesting stack tonight, and he's batting leadoff. And I don't think he's going to come with very much ownership. Everyone's going to be like, oh, no Aaron Judge in the lineup. Like, we're not going to play Yankees. And then I think it's disgusting, but I think you could potentially punt with Elvis Andrus, too, at 2,300.
I probably won't play him, but you could do worse.
I don't blame you, but I'm thinking about it.
Give me Chris Taylor hitting cleanup as a punt. It's position eligibility is a little bit different if you're depending on what site you're on, but he's outfield, third base, and shortstop on Fanduel at 2,700. There's some pinch hit risk with him, but Volpe I like as well. If you're not on Uvalde, has a little bit of leverage there, but otherwise I think Perdomo and Adames and Franco are going to be the popular plays there.
I should mention that Adames on FanDuel is way more playable, and I think that he's worthy of more shots over on that site. On DK, he's very expensive though, but Adames at 3,100 on FanDuel, I think is a really good play.
All right, let's turn to the outfield, and then we'll hit the questions. I don't see too many, so I've kind of stalled a little bit here, but outfield, what are you looking at tonight? Looks like this is where everybody's going to just be going for those Coors bats.
Yeah, Corbin Carroll. I love Corbin Carroll. I've been waiting for this breakout for like a full year now, and this is his time to shine. So I'm going to play him just because I'm a huge Carroll fan, and he's deservedly the top option in projections today. So I think he is your top option for cash. You think he's a top tournament play? He's going to be popular, but I say go with it. So, and then Chris Bryant. Not as strong of a play, but also, it's still a good matchup. And then I mentioned Eloy Jimenez at 3K on DK. He would be another definite cash game option in the outfield. I would say Bretton Doyle is another guy that's like probably your pivot for tournaments off of Jimenez at 3,200. He's batting in the 7-hole. He's another prospect that could end up having a big, kind of a sneaky, talented guy. And so I think Coors are the obvious choices, but I think there are different ways or like Alec Thomas is another different way to get exposure to Coors that I think a lot of people aren't going to want to play, batting in the 8-hole.
All right. I like those calls. And I think, it is a little bit interesting if you want to try to play Coors, but yet get a little bit different with, Carroll, Bryant, Grichuk, Blackman. Those guys aren't going to be lower owned, but the bottom of the order guys, like Thomas, who you mentioned there, sometimes they can be difference makers if they have good games on the cheap. The White Sox guys can be used as punts, and nobody's playing the likes of Ohtani, Trout, relatively speaking, tonight, compared to what we see on a lot of other slates. Mookie Betts, because they're facing good pitchers, you can always use these guys as one-offs in GPPs. All right, couple of questions. We got about 5 minutes left until lock, so we'll go through these now. Achilles FanDuel cash question, 2v2 here. Eloy and Rojas or Crone and Doyle?
The first one for cash.
I would agree with that. Let's see. Then another one, DK cash, Doyle or Eloy?
For cash, it's Eloy, I think.
Yeah, I like Eloy too. I mean, I know Doyle's in Coors, but that's if you took the ballpark factor away, people would that would be a no-brainer. So NBA DFS, another 2v2 FanDuel cash, Blackman and Longoria or Bryant and Rivera?
The first one.
All right. Jay Sams has a tournament question. Let's see. In FanDuel tournaments, you mentioned about first base being loaded. Is it a mistake to flip the build and go cheap at first base and then load up with outfield guys like Trout and Arozarena in FanDuel tournaments?
That sounds a little ambitious to me. I hate to say the word mistake in baseball, though, because it's all about how you correlate your team in baseball. It's all about how you stack. So do it in a stacking way. You don't have to build any way that I said. There's really no mistakes in baseball. It's all about correlation.
All right. Down to about 3 minutes left here until lock. Dean was also asking about why Patrick Wisdom was sitting 8th for the Cubs today. Patrick Wisdom, dude's homered on the weekend, like every weekend. We joked about this because the very first weekend of the season, Britt was asking me about home run props, and I said, Patrick Wisdom, he's probably got to be like about plus 600, and he was like plus 280. And I'm like, why are all these odds so great on Patrick Wisdom to homer? And then he homered that day, and then he homered the next day, and then the next weekend he hit like 3 bombs, and now he's homered again today. Why he's sitting 8th, I have no idea, but that's the Cubs, I guess. But he has just gone off on the weekends, seemingly all year. So former Cardinal, of course, Patrick Wisdom. All right. Don't see any more questions in the Discord. If you are in the YouTube, again, reminder, hit the thumbs up button. We don't have TJ here to pan for the likes tonight, but I would like to see some thumbs up as well. So we're going to answer some questions here in the YouTube chat. Appreciate you hitting that thumbs up button. No weather to speak of. That's super impactful on the night slate tonight. Shouldn't have to worry about that, at least compared to the early slate and to last night. Michael asking, how do y'all feel about the Rangers in GPPs? And I don't think you talked about the Rangers too much. What's your stance on the Rangers?
I kind of like Burrito tonight, and I also don't want to go against the Yankees bullpen. So I'm not really about the Rangers tonight, but that I could obviously be wrong. It's baseball. Anybody can hit a ceiling on a given night, but I'm not about them tonight.
I like them a little better. Brito came up with some promise. Had one start. He didn't get out of the first inning. I think he's only got like 12 total Ks on the year. So he's had trouble acclimating to the major league level. He's certainly talented. And like you mentioned, they've got a pretty good bullpen. But it's definitely a risk reward. I like them a little bit better. Not my first choice, obviously, but I like them a little better than Tim does. All right. Tovar or Trejo on DraftKings, which cheap Coors guys you like a little better?
I guess Tovar, but I think it's pretty much a coin flip.
Yeah, it's not a whole lot between them in terms of projections.
No.
Let me flip back to the Discord. All right. Let's see. On a FanDuel small field single entry, do you think an Arizona fade is viable?
It's always viable. Yes. If that's the way you want to go, it's absolutely okay.
He's mentioning the lack of fly balls in the lineup. It's certainly, it's Coors, but you can always fade a chalk offense on a short slate for some leverage. All right, let's see. FanDuel cash from Achilles, Uvalde and Rojas, or Lynn and Crone.
Uvalde.
Yeah, I'm not playing Lynn and cash for sure.
Right.
All right, DK Cash from SHB Ball, Grichuk and Volpe or McMahon and Eloy? DK Cash.
The second one.
Yeah, that's pretty close. I would lean towards that one as well. I don't think you need to play Volpe and Cash tonight. All right, Willie Calhoun revenge game we've got in the YouTube chat. Let's see. And we've hit the lock. Is any of this? I'm trying to get one more question here. I don't think any of these guys have locked yet. DK, GPP, Pavin Smith, Chris Bryant, and Trejo. That's the first three. Walker, Jimenez, and Brandon Lau is the second three.
Well, the second one's going to be a lot higher owned. So I think if it's like a large field GPP, you try to go for the first one.
Says he already has a D-back stack, I think, with Pavin Smith in there. I think that's a nice way.
I think it's a really good play.
All right, Mitchell Mayo's asking for Spidey bombs. TJ's not here, so there's no Spidey.
No, I don't do that.
There can maybe be some bombs, but they're not going to be from Spidey. I don't bet the home run props a lot either. I think they've really cut down the juice on those. You know, it's a fun little thing, but for those that do it and, you know, you analyze pitch mix and stuff like that, there's some that can stay afloat doing it. It's not my cup of tea, you know, especially because the Coors prices always tend to be through the roof. If I went with somebody, it would probably be if you can get somebody at high odds from the Dodgers as a one-off home run. Like, I don't think Montgomery's going to get shelled, but if you can get good odds on a Will Smith somewhere, or Mookie or Trace Thompson, somebody like that, I don't think that's a bad bet, but don't want to just try to throw something out there for the sake of doing it. Not our forte as much as some of the others.
No, I don't follow any of those lines, so I don't like to give out because I don't know what's like a plus EV or, you know what I mean? Like, I don't really follow home run lines, so I don't like to give them out.
Yeah, they've gotten a lot shorter. The books have gotten a little, you know, they've gotten burned, I think, by a few bad lines in the past, so they've tightened that up a little bit. But still a fun thing. I know a lot of people love doing it as far as hoping for those bombs. But to each their own in terms of strategy and analysis. All right, no more questions in the Discord. No more questions on the YouTube. Tim, anything else from you before we call it a Saturday night here?
No, good luck, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
All right, thanks to Tim for pulling double duty with me today. Appreciate that very much. We'll be back at you tomorrow with the usual lunchtime start for the Sunday baseball slate, so we'll catch you back here then. Until then, for Tim and for Devin producing, working hard behind the scenes for us, appreciate that as well on the weekend. I am Justin. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, everybody, and we'll catch you here tomorrow. Have a good one.